for joining us on Finding God in the World of Video Games. E3 2019 has just wrapped up, and we have a lot of new and exciting information to unpack over the next several weeks.
Keanu Reeves is here today, so we're oh, he's not.
I wish Keanu Reeves was here. That'd be awesome.
Well, he's been showing up very surprisingly and unannounced, so I didn't know if he's not on the show. Okay,
no, I wish
we don't have Keanu Reeves.
That would be pretty dang cool. But we will have a full recap for everyone on our next video for E3. But today we're going to get started with a huge title coming to us from a galaxy far, far away, Star Wars Jedi: Fallen Order.
And Keanu Reeves, is he in this one? He's not in?
No.
Oh, okay. Well.
That would also be cool.
Okay, so Keanu Reeves is not in Star Wars, but this is going to be a major title coming to us from EA. EA decided to skip E3 this year and just do their own announcements. And they did a gigantic info dump on this new Star Wars game, which looks really amazing.
I'm honestly really surprised with the revealed trailers and gameplay that was showcased for this game. I mean, we have an original storyline, a new Jedi protagonist, some refreshingly deep combat, some really awesome Force powers on display. I mean, it's been a hot minute since we've had an opportunity to leverage the mystical powers of the Force in a Star Wars game in a truly innovative way. And it's really exciting to see that this will be integrated into multiple facets of the game. Level exploration, environmental puzzles, and combat scenarios.
Well, you know, there's an inherent danger in building a whole game off of a Jedi character, because they have access to the Force, and you would think that would be this incredibly powerful character that's just going to steamroll over absolutely every opponent they face in the game. And the developers have found a really solid way to work around this by making the Force a meter that depletes as you use it. And you have to use the Force, whether it's combat or whether it's in the environmental puzzles, whether it's trying to solve a situation of how to get from point A to point B. And the only way to refill it, you can't just stand around like in some games and let it refill. You actually have to engage in combat and to survive it in order to replenish your Force meter so you can use it for all of the really cool things that are available. And, I was thinking, infinite Force power, what would one do with that if you didn't have to worry about a rechargeable meter? So what would you do if you had this infinite Force power at your disposal?
I'd have it clean everything for me.
So you're thinking like Mickey Mouse, Fantasia style,
definitely.
Brooms going, because that worked out great for him, if I remember correctly. That was.
Well, I'd also have it cook for me. That way I didn't have to cook anymore. That'd be great.
I'm not even going to comment on that, because no matter what I say here, I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to leave that alone.
Watch it.
But from a serious point of view, when you're watching the movies and you watch these Jedi and the Sith and you see all these lightsaber battles and you see all this cool stuff, and I've always just kind of wondered, why aren't they doing that cool Force stuff all the time? Why don't you see them in these lightsaber battles? Why aren't they constantly throwing stuff at each other and exploding planets? And I mean, you have basically like the Infinity Gauntlet at your disposal, you would think. And when you saw Thanos using that in the movie, he was pulling whole planets down from space, smashing people. Why is it that these Jedi and Sith aren't constantly tapping into this? And I thought, well, maybe they have a combo meter too. Maybe there's not an infinite supply that they can use, but instead they're having to ration out their use of the Force throughout these combat scenarios, and it has to replenish. I never really had considered that. But either way, when we were watching this gameplay video, it became very clear that if you don't carefully balance your Force use between combat and exploration and puzzle solving, your Jedi's probably going to end up on the wrong end of one of these lightsaber battles very, very quickly. And when I considered that, I realized I probably also neglected to consider my connection to God in kind of the same way. I just figured that once I had made that initial connection with Him, I could just kind of coast by without requiring any further, system updates. Then when I was reading in Luke 22, where you see Jesus preparing for His crucifixion, we see that here's the literal Son of God. He has proven His ability to command the wind, the waves, sickness, death itself. There's really not anything that He can't conquer. And then we see Him do something that I wasn't probably really expecting. He had to take some quiet time to Himself to pray. And this wasn't the first time or the only time that we see this. He retired many times away from the people and all the things that He was doing in order to pray. This was a consistent part of His life. And in Luke 22, just to set the stage very quickly, this is his final day on earth. He's going to the garden to pray with some of his closest disciples, and he's going to spend some time talking to God about this path that he's about to walk. And we see him praying, "Father, if it is your will, take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done." And then we see that an angel appears to him and strengthens him. Now that honestly gives us a good reason to ask a few hard questions. Why did Jesus have the need to pray in the first place? He is the Son of God. Why was he asking God to take away the path he was about to walk on? Why did he need strengthening by anyone? He himself was God in the flesh. Why does he need any help at all? And I think these questions deserve to be answered. And after observing the gameplay in Jedi Fallen Order, I think we have some clues. So let's dig into the most difficult question. Why did Jesus need to pray at all? Because it kind of answers why we need to pray. We see that Jesus was about to face his most challenging mission. In his entire ministry on earth, he's about to go to be beaten mercilessly, betrayed by almost everyone that he's ever cared about. He's going to be disfigured horrifically to the point that people could barely recognize him as human. He's going to be burdened with all of the sins of mankind, past, present, and future. Oh, and he's going to be slowly murdered in front of his own mother, just in case that wasn't enough. It's going to be a rough day. So in order to endure what was ahead, he needed to recharge his meter, his spiritual batteries, and he needed to do that the only way that is given to us, by talking to God in prayer. He needed that power to face the destiny that he was about to walk into. Jesus in prayer transparently came to God and told him the truth about how he was feeling. He's given us an example of what we're going to need to do as well. It was a very direct and earnest prayer from a child to their parent, and God answered it not through some long verbal dialogue, but through an angel who came and strengthened him. Even Jesus, the Son of God, needed consistent and constant communication with God for instruction, strength, and peace. Now, it doesn't say that God talked back to him, and I know a lot of times we may look at it and say, well, I prayed, and I didn't hear an audible voice of God telling me what to do. Well, it doesn't say Jesus did either. It doesn't even record that he got what would technically be considered a response to his question. He simply was given the strength to endure what was coming next. I think sometimes we have the mistaken idea that God needs us to pray, like he's this aged relative sitting in heaven on some orange couch, waiting for us to call and sitting there talking to the angels. You know, the grandkids never call. I wonder if they'll call today. But that's not why we pray. We don't pray because he needs it. We're not doing him any favors. Prayer is for us, just as it was for Jesus here, to replenish our strength and provide direction. And you may ask, when I pray, God doesn't answer my questions. He doesn't say anything at all. But I'm going to ask you very directly, did God answer Jesus when he prayed in the garden and audibly say, Jesus, I know it's going to be a rough day. You got a lot of crucifixion going on, but I'm going to kind of need you to do this. It's a pretty big deal. No, there's no record of that. He did answer Jesus' prayer, just not through the way that we would normally anticipate, through a long verbal conversation. He gave him the strength to do what he knew he needed to do. And I'm going to challenge you today. If you're feeling world weary, exhausted, or powerless, defeated, I want to encourage you that the problem is not necessarily you or the path you're walking. It's because you're trying to carry your cross without God's help. And if even Jesus could not do that, why in the world would we think we can? If you're feeling burdened, honestly, join the party. Jesus never promised us a life without burden. He told us flat out, we're going to have to take up our cross, deny ourselves, and follow him. Just like the Jedi in our gaming example, we're going to need power to solve the challenges and win the battles that lie ahead. And there are indeed battles lying ahead. And there's only one way we can recharge our meter. And that is through simple prayer to our Creator. It's not going to refill automatically for you. You didn't get an infinite supply tank the day that you chose to follow Jesus. It's our daily bread that we receive from God when we go to him each day and all throughout our day, and ask him to guide us through every step of the way. None of us, not even Christ himself, can carry our cross without him.